Hello, class and professor. My name is Stephanie, and along with my group members, we're going to be going through a presentation on Uber Technologies Incorporation and why International Everything should purchase the company. So we're first going to start off with some company history. So the company was formed in March of 2009 in San Francisco by Travis Kalanick and Garrett Camp. However, Travis Kalanick stepped forward as more of the CEO for the company. Both the founders are very successful venture capitalists that have other successful companies that they pursue as well. The company falls underneath the transportation industry, more specifically the services sector in the ride-for-hire market. Next, we're going to look at a timeline. So this timeline's from 2009 to the middle of 2015. Uber was first established under the name Uber Cab in 2009. They had some legal issues that arose in 2010. We'll talk about those more later. And later that year, they changed their name from Uber Cab to Uber to reduce some of the legal issues. In the beginning of 2011, they expanded their network to be into New York, which is a very urban city, which caused for a lot of revenue for the company. Later that year, they continued expanding more into 7 US cities as well as Paris and Toronto, Canada. Later in 2013, they increased their services line by adding the UberX to their products. Later in 2013, they were able to get some funding to help their drivers purchase cars through Toyota and GM Motors with finance loans. In 2014, they added more vehicle types to the UberX services line. Later that year, they became even more of a global presence with being in 130 cities and 36 countries. In the middle of 2014, they had more disruption in the market by being in the 10 largest cities with the 10 largest economies. And the latter of that year, they also started their new service, which is the food delivery with Uber Eats through the smartphone app. And then they became more of a leader in the market by being in 200 cities and 54 countries towards the end of 2015. Next, we'll look at the services that are offered by Uber. They have black car hire services, which is what they first started off with, UberX services, Uber Pool, and food delivery. And these are all through the Uber smartphone app. Next, we'll look at the problems faced by the company. The main problem that the company faces is legal issues. They come from city and state regulations, taxi services, and the competitors, as well as their own employees. This is something that is a big problem that they face, and it incurs a lot of expenses for the company, and it stops them from growing more globally throughout the whole world because they have to abide by certain laws and regulations, even though they're very disruptive, new, innovative technology that doesn't have specific rules set in place. And we'll talk about those more throughout the presentation. Another issue is a financial issue. Since they're a privately held company, they do not disclose financials, which can cause for their valuations to be questioned by the public. They also have internal issues when it comes to driver satisfaction and also issues with social responsibility. They need to work more on improving being more eco-friendly when it comes to the use of cars.
Hello, my name is Jabron. So I'm going to continue by talking about the organizational structure of Uber. Uber is a pretty traditional organizational structure. They have the CEO at the top, Travis Kalanick, who makes decisions, corporate level managers, on-site operation teams in all the cities that Uber operates in. Drivers are independent of the company, so they're not employed by Uber. A couple other things. Uber is regulated by city and local government, not federal government. And Uber's services are all rooted in real world assets. They do not own the cars that are operating for them. Next, I'll talk about the control systems that Uber has. A few of them I'll mention. The driver rating system is in place to make sure drivers are giving good service to their customers. Low driver ratings could result in drivers having to take classes. They also did something such as offering 200,000 drivers low interest rate loans to purchase cars. However, if they stopped working for Uber, the loan rate would go up really high. So it locked in drivers for a long period of time. They also added things to their app, such as a panic button and tracking features to make sure that their customers are safe. And in 2015, they announced the establishment of Uber Safety Advisory Board. Next, global presence. Uber's global presence is continually expanding. They're currently operating in over 40 countries and over 200 cities. And they do things to drive rapid growth, such as choosing cities they consider accelerants. Accelerants have young individuals, lively nightlife, room for growth in their city, sports cities, cities with great weather, a lot of these things that are increasing the demand and the brand name for Uber. I'll then talk about the global strategy that Uber has. Uber uses a transnational strategy. While they do use a similar business model in all their locations, they differentiate their service depending on the laws and regulations that exist in those locations. So they have a local operation team in every city, like I mentioned, and these operation teams make sure that they're customizing the experience and making sure that they're able to grow their services there in the best way possible.
Hi, my name is Maya, and I'll be discussing Uber's major competitors in the market. So, the first major competitor that Uber disrupted when entering the ride-hailing industry was taxicabs. Before Uber was introduced, taxicabs were taking over the world in major cities such as New York, San Francisco, and even in cities that are international as well. Through the rise of Uber, a lot of ride-hailing apps have also been on the rise, but today we're going to talk specifically about Lyft. So, Lyft was launched by Logan Green and John Zimmer in 2012, and by mid-2014, it had established itself in 60 cities in the United States. They're generally known for offering significant discount codes to loyal riders. Public transportation is another indirect competitor of Uber. Transit systems tend to offer much lower prices to regular commuters. However, after many studies and surveys were commissioned to evaluate the preference of customers, many prefer to use their ride-sharing apps over public transportation. In terms of strengths, the first strength that Uber possesses as a company is being an early adopter in the industry of ride-sharing services. So this gave it the ability to be very well known and very popularly spoken of. Uber also decided to venture from the traditional system to provide a new service known as UberX, in which Uber drivers offer private rides and are allowed to use their own vehicles. Lastly, a strength that Uber possesses is the engagement and strategic partnerships with other companies such as credit card companies, restaurants, and other apps. Moving on to the weaknesses, a major weakness is the relationship it possesses between its drivers. Uber drivers are considered independent contractors, which means that they won't receive any benefits from the company and they're able to leave at any time. A lot of these drivers have also expressed dissatisfaction with the pay. Uber has also been accused of price gouging by tripling their prices during peak hours and capitalizing on emergency situations. Lastly, Uber struggles with placing strict regulations to guarantee safety among passengers and dismisses the adherence to proper safety standards. In terms of opportunities, they've expanded their brand by offering Uber Eats and Uber Rush. These new services are allowing Uber to branch out and expand their business model and services into different markets to collaborate with other businesses. As the company continues to expand its association with other brands, it also raises an opportunity for buzz marketing when each company is promoting the collaboration. In terms of threats, as the business expands, many more regulations are placed in order to ensure safety, inclusion, and overall performance to be properly conducted and obeyed. Taxi lobbies have also been pressuring local governments to block Uber in many cities as they are declaring that their business suffers from an unfair advantage. Uber is also destined to forego many competitors that will enter the market and provide more threats to the company that offer customers better features, benefits, and alternatives as opposed to Uber. Moving on to Porter's competitive five-force model analysis, the risk of entry by competitors is very high. However, the barriers to entry can be assessed at a higher level because competitors would need to invent new features and techniques that differentiate them. Uber has already begun scaling up to produce lower unit costs, which is difficult to imitate for new entrants in the market. Lastly, analyzing the legal issues that Uber has experienced will also allow the opportunity for competitors to learn from these liabilities and enter the market aware and prepared for their new business. It is also a very stiff and cutthroat rivalry market as they are experiencing very high rivals all over the world in the same market. Uber faces a direct competitor in the US, as mentioned earlier, known as Lyft, and Lyft continues to make improvements and develop added value to both supplier and buyer. And Uber definitely must keep that in mind if they want to secure their spot in the market moving forward. In terms of the bargaining power of buyers, that is relatively high, as customers can switch to other brands since the application is free to download. Switching costs for riders are fairly low, which means they can easily transition to similar brands without any hassle. However, value propositions for the customer are compelling in terms of lower costs and shorter wait times for the Uber to arrive if accurately stated. Uber definitely needs to focus more on their customers and retaining them as well. In terms of the leading suppliers, bargaining power of suppliers, that is considered to be the drivers of Uber, as they are the company's main source to providing the service that they do. The company's business model is highly dependent on them, and as they are the main providers. So switching costs are also deemed low as drivers are able to work for better wages at different companies without sacrificing much. In terms of ride sharing, self-driving cars have been the risk of the decade. Car sharing companies have also emerged such as Zipcar, which drivers can easily book a car within minutes and rent it out for an hour. Another substitute that may be applied in the future can be the improvements of public transportation systems. Lastly, there could be a societal shift from working from home in which commuters would not really need to use Uber to get to their destination. Lastly, I'm going to discuss the distinctive competencies. So the company acquires a significant reputation as being one of the most known ride-sharing apps in the industry, and they can easily market their brand through consistent word of mouth and customer loyalty. Uber offers a dual business model that delivers value to both the driver and the passenger by offering mutual incentives that are catered towards benefiting both groups. Uber is also very successful in developing an exceptional workforce that results in lower employee turnover and increased customer satisfaction. The pricing algorithm is also a fundamental function that enables the company to capitalize on the relationship between supply and demand.
Hello, my name is Alfredo, and I'm going to talk about Uber's Blue Ocean analysis. Blue Ocean analysis describes an uncontested market space for an unknown industry by making competition irrelevant and creating and capturing new demands. The way to succeed is to come up with a new value innovation system focusing on making the competition irrelevant. Value innovation is created where companies' actions affect the cost and the structure of the service and the proposition to the user. Cost savings are made by eliminating and reducing the factor a industry competes on. Value is lifted by creating elements the industry has never offered before. In a blue ocean analysis, the company needs to reconstruct market boundary, focusing in the big picture, reach beyond existing demand, and getting the sequence right. To execute the plan, the company needs to overcome organizational problems, building execution plans, and value proven and people's propositions. Then, the company has to think which factors should be eliminated, which factors should be reduced, which factors should be improved, and which factors should be created. In this case, what makes Uber so different from most common transportation companies is that Uber created a whole new experience by incorporating technology in the process. Uber reduced financial transactions and reduced the waiting time. Uber improved the pickup times, the quality service, and location tracking. And Uber eliminated owning cars, having employees, and eliminating the fixed pricing. Now I'm going to talk about Uber corporate level strategy. Uber mission statement is we ignite opportunity by setting the world in motion. Transportation everywhere for everyone. Uber competitive advantage comes from the design of the app and the service provided. When a user needs a ride, the user just takes out a mobile phone and opens the application to order a car. The phone GPS knows exactly where the user is. The driver knows the final destination because the user entered the address on the app as well, and the app has the user's credit card on file, so there is no financial transaction between the user and the driver. Now, imagine all the steps that have been eliminated compared with a traditional taxi company. The user needed to find a taxi company phone number, then the user needed to call the operator and tell them the address. The operator would send a taxi to pick the customer up, but the customer didn't know the estimated time of arrival. Finally, the user would have to take out a payment method and use it manually at the end of the ride. Uber innovated by combining all these steps in a few button taps and reduce the steps that user has to go through to enjoy the service. The app itself is an innovation service. The sale happens through the mobile app and not through a website booking or a phone call center. Uber claims to be a technology company and not a transportation company. And this is very important because Uber treats its drivers as independent contractors and not employees. So drivers are considered key partners on the business model and not key resources. If drivers were considered employees, Uber will not be as profitable for them anymore because Uber will need to pay more taxes and it will be more expensive for the user. Also, the software that Uber created allowed to innovate on the revenue model with the surge pricing. It automatically raises the prices when demand is high and offer is low. And so both the driver and the company earn more money. Uber's most attractive feature for users are the innovative design of the service and the lower prices. Because Uber internal processes are different compared to traditional transportation companies, Uber's disruptive global success can be found in the business model innovation, which offers a better service to customers and lower prices.
So next, I'm going to talk about the functional level strategies that Uber uses to ensure superior efficiency, innovation, quality, and customer responsiveness. So drivers have an incentive to be efficient as they're working on their own time. Uber does not own the vehicles, so it's a low overhead cost for production. The word of mouth marketing, which I touched on earlier, is very efficient. And the transactions all take place on the app. No cash is exchanged. Very efficient. Looking at innovation, the surge pricing and locating the drivers in the best place to wait for the customers is the use of data analytics to be innovative. And there's product extensions such as UberX, Uber Black, Uber SUV, and there's more that are constantly developing as they continue to think of ideas. Ensuring superior quality. Management goes into every city prior to launching to make sure that everything is set for a smooth transition and a smooth launch. And the operation team stay on those grounds in every city that Ubers exist to make sure that everything is being ran well. And lastly, superior customer responsiveness. Customers are able to give drivers ratings, and there's quick response times for these customers, as well as riders are able to track the driver's location. So we did a VRIO analysis on these functional level strategies. So as we know, Uber is not the only one in their market. There is a competitor. Their best competitor is Lyft. And when looking at a VRIO analysis, we look at what sets them apart. So a lot of these different resources and capabilities are valuable. However, they are not rare, inimitable, or organized around this. The one thing that does stand out and separate Uber from the rest of their competition is that Uber brand name and the respect that the company has. This Uber brand is valuable, rare, inimitable, and the company is organized around this, and it gives Uber a sustainable competitive advantage.
Next, we'll be taking a look at the financials for the company. The company is private. They do not disclose their financial statements. They have some questions when it comes to their valuation, really high profits. However, they also have really high losses. And it's good to remember that they're in a period of expansion during the time period of this case, which is 2009, 2015. So let's take a look at some of the financials. So if we look at 2014 and the middle of 2015, their gross bookings and their net revenues skyrocketed to new levels within 6 months. Also, their expenses skyrocketed. They accrue a lot of expenses. They need to work on cutting their expenses to have less GAAP losses and less of losses when it comes to their net income. If it wasn't for their large backing with their from investors with a large cash flow, they wouldn't be able to cover these expenses and they would be bankrupt. So next we'll look at some financial ratios. So they have a high gross profit margin. However, their net profit margin, return on investment, and return on equity are all negative numbers, and these are not good. And the reason is because they need to cut down their costs. And if it wasn't for the large cash flow that they have from when they were a startup, getting a lot of backing financially and from investors now because they believe in the mission, the goal of the company, then they wouldn't be able to be doing as well as they are right now, even though they have high losses. And then we look at their liquidity ratios. They are strong numbers. However, they also need to decrease the amount of costs for those numbers to improve. If we take a look at the competition is Lyft. They're also a privately held company. They do not disclose their financials as well. We take a look at them. Uber beats them in all areas when it comes to gross bookings and it comes to their company valuation. There's no actual competition for Uber because the global presence that Uber has is soaring over Lyft as a competition.
Hello, my name is Christian, and our team has 3 main suggestions that can help to improve Uber's strategic and competitive position. Our first recommendation is that Uber should focus primarily on horizontal integration rather than vertical integration. This is because of the fact that vertical integration would disrupt Uber's business strategy by incurring costs and subjecting the company to even more legislative scrutiny. This can be demonstrated through needing to maintain the vehicles the company would hypothetically buy. Uber should instead completely focus on horizontal integration to generate services that broaden their revenue streams and value propositions under their same business strategy. An example of this would be Uber's experimentation with Uber Fresh and later becoming Uber Eats. The second recommendation that we suggest is that Uber should form strategic partnerships that help to increase their brand awareness and demand through other markets. An example of this would be Uber forming a partnership with a foreign company like Singapore Airlines, which would help to increase their spread of Uber's brand. At the same time, Uber can also use a strategic partnership to increase the satisfaction and loyalty of its users. For example, having a partnership with Ticketmaster would allow for users to be able to use the service at a reduced rate and not worry about having to find parking at an event. or that Uber could partner with AAA and arrange discounts on yearly memberships for drivers so that they can have ease of mind while working. Lastly, we recommend that Uber implement a reward program for drivers that has both monetary and non-monetary rewards. This is because it helps to incentivize the reduction of negative behaviors from drivers while working under the Uber name. Drivers could also have increased loyalty and satisfaction to Uber because they are being recognized and rewarded for their good work. Now, given everything that we have discussed, our team strongly recommends that International Everything Incorporated buys Uber. This is because a majority of the problems Uber faces comes from them being a blue ocean company and a new company at that. They are navigating a course that has not been done before and are setting precedent for future companies. The pros that the company have are simply a reflection of that and the organization's quality. Thank you everybody for listening to our presentation. Are there any questions?